Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game S. So, today I got a fun and exciting video for you guys today, and one that everyone's been asking me to make and talk about. We're going to be going over the difference between a static recompilation, a PC board based on a decomp project, as well as some of the new hybrid static recomps that are out there, or at least getting their start. And I honestly waited on this video for two reasons. One, because I knew some of the hybrid recomps are coming out, and I wanted to include them in the video versus making two different versions of this, and two, I really had to think outside the box as to how to explain this to people, because one thing I have realized is if the technical explanations get too deep, people tune out, and it actually doesn't really help anyone understand the difference between a recomp, a PC port, or otherwise. So that's what we're definitely going to be talking about today. I'm going to explain the differences, explain the similarities, and why in the end it absolutely matters and doesn't matter whatsoever. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. And I 100% understand this can be a little bit of a confusing territory sort of thing, because whether it's a static recomp or a PC port, at the end of the day you double click an executable on your PC and you end up playing a retro game off its original hardware. So in functionality, yes, they are different and they're accomplished in completely different ways, but the end result is you sit down on your PC and just play a video game. And honestly, that is a good thing, because we don't want to spend too much time thinking about how things work when we want to have fun. We just want to sit down and have fun. But it is important to delineate between the two different concepts, because something like you're watching right now, this is Sonic Unleashed, and this is a full recompilation of the Xbox 360 version of the game. It was one of the first we saw, and honestly it's absolutely mind-blowingly impressive and really opened up the floodgates for the idea of Xbox 360 recompilations. And that definitely is a good thing, because when I say we are in a new golden era of retro gaming, and this is why retro gaming is going to be making a big comeback, it's 100% what I mean, and I am excited to see it. But I think on the N64 side of things, that's where it really gets a bit confusing for people, because we have certain titles that exist as PC ports only, like Perfect Dark here, based upon a full decompilation of the game, and we also have static recomps of certain games. And in some instances, Star Fox, we have both a PC port as well as a static recomp that in the end both end up with you playing Star Fox 64 on your PC looking better than N64, but they have you doing it in completely different ways. So basically what we're going to break down in this video today is the following. First up, I'm going to explain exactly what a static recomp is when it is done 100%, then I'm going to explain what a PC port is, and then at the end of the video, I'm going to go over some of the new recomp tools, especially on the Xbox 360 side of things, that are only statically recompiling the game code, but everything else is using emulation under the hood for now. That's going to be the hybrid approach, so definitely sit down and get ready, because we're going to get a little bit technical, but I'm also going to try to explain exactly how it works in some plain language, and we're going to be using the idea of cooking today to explain the difference between a recomp, a PC port, as well as a hybrid sort of approach. Because just recently Rex Glue showed up and I explained that on the channel as to how it's only statically recompiling a certain amount of stuff and emulation is the back end, but let's get right into it. We're going to be starting off with the full static recompilation, which we've seen just recently in Banjo Kazooie Recompiled as well as Star Fox 64 Recompiled. And Star Fox is a really good example, because like a couple other N64 games, there are both static recomps as well as PC ports out there. Think about the static recompilation like this. You do not have to decompile the game to its source code and then do a code port to get it running on PC. With a lot of the different symbols, you can actually statically recompile the code in real time so that it's something that can be read by a modern computer. And my explanation to this is, think if you roasted a chicken on Monday and had it for dinner, then Tuesday you boiled the carcass, made stock, and had chicken soup. You have a very similar thing, you've just turned it into another meal, versus taking the chicken that you roasted and unroasting it and then trying to make grilled chicken out of it. That would be a decompilation. This is using N64 Recompiled, which is a tool set that allows for the static recompilation of N64 code into code that something like a modern CPU would be able to actually execute the code on, as well as all of the video and audio portions that make up a game. It's also going to be our first soundtrack sample so you can hear, and I'll be right back.
全機敵基地に侵入し敵の新兵器を破壊する。ちょっとからかってやるか。
油断するな。If I'm being honest, I only gave you the soundtrack samples so you could kind of sit there and digest. Pun very much intended the idea of how a roast chicken to a chicken soup could be a static recompilation. The idea I want you to actually get into your head is the following. A static recompilation does not require a decomp at 1% or at 100%. You can take a game ROM and 100% statically recompile it to be a PC executable without ever having to decompile any code. Now, do some people decompile sections of it to try to better understand what's going on? It is a possibility, but it isn't really an essential necessity to do. And again, I totally get my example with food is just to try to get you to think about these concepts outside of the box, because if you have a technically minded brain, you probably already know the difference, and the video really isn't quote-unquote for you. My entire goal as a college professor of film and television and with this channel is to be able to conversationally explain deep topics without making you zone out, without making you get lost along the way. So a static recomp is one of two different ways to get these classic retro games having PC ports, and even though we use the word port all the time, technically it isn't a source port, and that's what we're going to be getting into next. So as far as something like a PC port is concerned, these are based on decompilation of the games. When we play the Perfect Dark PC port, that is based upon decompiled code from the actual game executable back to its source code. And something you need to know is, when you're playing a game, whether it's an N64 game, PlayStation 1 game, or even a modern game, the source code is actually not in the compilation whatsoever. Compiled code does not have the source code included, but you can actually reverse engineer back to that source code. Think of it this way. Something like a PC port in a decompilation would be like taking that roast chicken, unbaking it, basically putting its feathers back on, and taking it back to the farm and making it be alive again. That would be the source code, and then from there, you could kill the chicken one more time and make another dinner out of it. It's basically disassembly back to the source code as the developers would have had it when they were making the game, and then from there, you can take that code which wouldn't natively run on modern PCs and do a code port to make sure it does. That is why when we talk about stuff like The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess being 100% decompiled, that means now that source code can be taken and then ported over to modern platforms. That is different than a static recomp because we've disassembled the entire compiled game back to its bare components, and we can now then take that code and port it anywhere we want. It could be on PC, it could be on Switch, it could be on a Texas Instruments calculator if it had enough power to run it. It just comes down to the coders deciding that they're actually going to make that PC port. And as far as the GameCube is concerned, that's why you see a lot of decompilation projects there, because there really isn't any sort of tool set to statically recompile GameCube games, at least that I know of. And it is, again, two sides of the same coin. If you were playing something like a Twilight Princess recomp versus a Twilight Princess PC port, if both of them were done exceptionally well, you really wouldn't have any idea what was going on. It's kind of like that roast chicken analogy. It doesn't matter who made the chicken if you go out for dinner. You don't ask the cook or the chef's name. You just decide whether or not you enjoy it or not, and that's exactly the difference between a static recomp and a PC port. They have the same end result even if they are done in completely different means. And honestly, decompiling something, especially like Twilight Princess, is not an easy job whatsoever, and it definitely takes time. And that's what we see on the Open Goal PC ports of the Jak and Daxter and Jak 2 games. These are PC ports based upon decompilation. So think about decompilation exactly like this. You made an entire meal and you decided you wanted to do something different. You unbaked the chicken, you uncooked the vegetables, you made the chicken come back to life, you buried the vegetables back in the ground, and then you basically harvested everything and decided, I'm going to prepare it in a completely different way. That is a decompilation, or think of it like a Lego set. If you took apart a build all the way down to its bare pieces, put them back in their numbered bags, and then put it back in the box, that is a full decompilation. Then you make the same model, but you change some of the colors out or make it somewhere else, and that is then the PC code port. It's kind of as simple as that and as complicated as that. Now we have the concept of hybrid recompilation, which is relatively quote-unquote new to the scene. We've seen it with Rexiclu, a video I did maybe about a week or so ago, depending on when I'm actually showing this to you. Now this is a situation where we have the static recompilation of the PowerPC game code. That is all of the code that basically runs the logic and everything else that is involved in the quote-unquote actual game. But as far as all the renderers are concerned, all the things that are running the audio, all the things that are running the video, that is going to be something that is not being statically recompiled. This is the concept of Thanksgiving. You roast the turkey, but you make everyone else bring over the sides. You have done one thing, but something else has been brought to you. So RexGlue is using Xenia as the backend for all of the audio and all of the video. I would assume all of the I/O as well, and those low-level tasks, even though it isn't listed here. It's taking the PowerPC code and turning it into C++ code that can run natively on basically any new CPU. Because don't forget, there really isn't any systems out there that you're going to encounter these days that are going to use PowerPC chipsets. At the point in time that we're at, I feel like the only thing still using PowerPC that I know of is radiation-hardened satellites and stuff like that, because interestingly and stupidly enough, PowerPC chips can be more resistant to radiation bit flipping. It's a really weird thing. Space is a strange place, and it's something that engineers actually have to worry about. So when we take a look at something like Sonic Unleashed here with a photo of my puppy from when I made this video, this is a full recompilation. It is not doing what something like RexGlue is doing, using Xenia as the backend and only dealing with the code. This is using the Xenom recomp tool, which is different and is more fully featured. Now, I'm not saying that one is any better than the other as far as how it's going to be in the end, but the fact that something like RexGlue is using Xenia underpinning everything else, and this is an example of a video I just talked about, Ninja Gaiden 2 Recomp, and that means that a lot of this can only be as good as how good Xenia currently is, and because that is incomplete emulation, you're always going to end up in a situation where it could be a little bit problematic. But that is the difference between a static recomp, a PC port based upon a full decompilation, and now the hybrid static recomps where it's recompilating some things and then using emulation in the background. And again, I know like we've had these things for a while, but it's going to be basically completely different in 5 to 10 years. The technology and tooling is going to change. PS2 Recomp tool is in development, showing some promise, so by the time this video is 10 years old, we probably have hundreds of games playable on PC. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below, but that's my explanation involving chicken. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.